Yeah.
They're pretty good.
Now, did they get the new chapter opened? I know they started out just at the House of Bread
Right.
in Bethlehem, but I heard that they were putting in a store at Easton, but it was just carry out. Do you know if that's opened yet?
I hadn't heard about that, so
Okay.
probably. I mean, they're all over social media, so.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's the one in Bexley. Duh. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean that one's been there forever.
Right.
So.
Yeah, and now they're the only thing since Blocks is out.
Yeah. There is actually a place in the Blocks Bagels down on McNaughton.
Yeah.
Can't remember what it's called. I've stopped in a couple times. It's decent, but it's not Blocks.
Yeah.
Man, there was just first of all, they don't have rye, and rye bagel, especially from a Jewish bagel shop, that's my favorite. They do have pumpernickel, which is very similar, but it's not.
If I ever had one from Blocks, it's been such a long time ago, I don't remember.
And they put like half a pound of cream cheese on it. It was like,
yeah,
big old slather of cream cheese. So.
You tenderize it enough, I can eat a tire of cream cheese.
I'm gonna start the timer.
Yeah.
And the pickle, you got to get the pickle.
Oh yeah.
With a rye bagel and plain cream cheese.
You ever go to Katzinger's?
I think once, like years and years and years ago.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
I need to
Their
go
pickles
again.
are really good too. I did have somebody. I think I had somebody pick some up once. But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, if you eat in, it's like, oh, you can eat pickles.
Oh, really?
At least it used to be.
That's in German Village, right?
Yeah.
Ira's House of Bread.
Get your challah.
Challah, yeah.
Deck the halls with loaves of challah. La 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 la. Well, it's Thursday, 7 p.m. all across the Eastern time zone. And that means it's time for Live 860, a podcast so that all may know. Brought to you weekly by Church 860, a Calvary Chapel affiliate in Westerville, Ohio. You can find us online at church860.com and the website for the specific podcast at live860.com. I'm your host. I want to say Pastor Mike. There was a comment earlier this week that somebody thought I was Pastor Mike.
You're not, though.
I don't know who that is. I'm your host, Rob Chandler. And joining me in the studio, as he does each week, is my good friend. The only thing bigger than his heart is his beard. Pastor Khris Rogers.
I like it.
Who will lead us through our discussion of the Bible chapter by chapter and verse by verse. Khris, I got to say, it's weeks like this extreme cold snap.
Yeah.
Where I am so glad that I have that extra blubber layer like a walrus.
A to the men, brother.
Yeah, I've been as snug as, a sea mammal in Alaska this week. Plus, I haven't gone outside, but
somebody needs to call Miami and see if we can borrow 30 degrees.
Something like that. So it helps me save on the heating bill. You know.
Sure.
So last week we dove into Ruth chapter 2. And we see Ruth and Naomi have returned home to Bethlehem, the house of bread. The famine is over, but with no husbands or family to provide, they have to find a way to eat. So Naomi tells Ruth about the provision God gave in the Levitical law, and it commands farmers to leave the edges and the corners of their fields during the harvest. And this way, it allowed anybody that was having hard times, that had a severe need, to come and gather grain free of charge, and they would be provided for that way.
Yep.
They could eat their fill from that provision. So Ruth heads off to the fields, and she gets right to work. And in the process, she wins the favor of Boaz, the landowner of these particular fields. he takes pity on her and Naomi and shows an extra measure of kindness in making certain that Ruth has a safe and steady place to gather grain. He tells her to come back day after day. Don't worry about having to hit up the other fields.
Yeah.
He even tells some of his reapers who nobody was afraid of, they didn't fear him, to drop extra for her, right? So she could gather the grain with no worries.
Is there such a thing as blue oysters? I'm just wondering.
I would not know. I don't know.
Cult.
I'm allergic to seafood, so
True.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry.
So anyhow, so they're given all this abundance, and when Ruth comes home with it, Naomi is just completely overwhelmed with the goodness of Yahweh. She's surprised also to learn that the man that has shown all this kindness to Ruth is Boaz. And that's significant because he is a relative of Naomi's husband, Elimelech.
Yep.
And that puts him in line for what we're going to see happen this week. And that's where we pick up our story in chapter 3.
Is Elimelech the long-lost cousin of Abimelech?
Yeah.
In the jungle?
Yeah, I don't think he's sleeping tonight.
Probably. So
this part where we go, hoo-wee!
All right, Ruth chapter 3. If you are watching or listening and you have a Bible nearby, grab it. We read from the New King James Version, and we would love for you to follow along. Ruth chapter 3, verse 1 says, "Then Naomi, her mother-in-law, said to her, 'My daughter, shall I not seek security for you, that it may be well with you?'" And so the chapter starts with then. You have to ask when the then is. And we read at the end of the last chapter, it was after the barley and wheat harvests.
Yes.
So some time had passed by. Boaz and Ruth had spent now a couple months together in the field, but not dating in the way that we would think of dating today.
So no stalking each other on Instagram,
right?
Sliding into the DMs, no going for a casual cup of coffee for a lunch date.
Right. No, it would have been more in the context of the work setting, more in a group setting. She's just going and working. Right. And he's providing for, like you said, for Naomi.
And totally professional. She's not even a work wife at this point.
Right. No, yeah, right. Just working, yes. And the kindness that Boaz showed Ruth, what we read in chapter 2, continued. He continued to tell her to work only in his field. He would see to it that she was provided for. And the Lord blessed Naomi and Ruth through this act of kindness. As Naomi was the recipient of this blessing, she was taken care of through the hard work of Ruth and the kindness of Boaz. I think she was grateful that the Lord was providing sustenance for them. And so I think she wants to show gratitude and offered to, as it said there in verse 1, seek security for Ruth.
Especially after, it wasn't that long ago that she pretty much insisted that Ruth stay
away.
in Moab.
Yeah.
And now her livelihood is being provided for basically by Ruth and the connection that's been made. And just I got to think that gratefulness both to God and to Ruth's insistence to stay with her was more than just, man, thank you so much. No, this was an overwhelming gratitude, just fall on her face gratitude.
Yeah. The word translated security there in verse 1 is the same word that is translated as rest in chapter 1, verse 9. And this is we talked about it a little bit in episode 1 of season 2, but the rest defined by this word is not taking a break from your labors, stopping in at Cheers or whatever. It's more the idea of rest of mind.
Okay.
It is that peace that comes from a godly marriage, and that's what Naomi's offering here is to try to set up a godly marriage.
As I say, that safe, soft place to land.
Yeah.
Every day.
Love that.
And I'm glad you said godly marriage, because all too often, for some people, marriage is the last place they find that rest.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, Ruth's great-great-grandson is going to write a whole lot about the lack of peace and rest in marriage.
That's probably because he had 700 of them.
This is true. This is true. And
we're
yeah,
talking about
Solomon,
obviously.
right?
But it just godly marriage is supposed to be a place of rest. Now,
Yes.
certainly, even in a godly marriage, you have two sinners that have married each other, and it can be challenging. Michelle and I are attending at our friends the Purpose Center. They're hosting the Art of Marriage, and it's just a kind of a marriage tune-up, and it's a good thing. But there is always things to work on.
Right.
But the overarching theme in a godly marriage is that home is your safe haven, that your spouse is the place that you find rest.
Yes.
So, yeah, and that's what Naomi is offering.
Mm-hmm.
She wants to play matchmaker. Matchmaker.
I knew you were
right,
going there.
right. Yeah. And offering to go
because it's tradition.
Tradition. Sorry, I think every high school
has done Fiddler
from
on the
Generation
Roof.
X.
Yeah.
Or did Fiddler on the Roof, and that was So she's playing matchmaker, and she wants to go to work to see that Ruth and Boaz connect and get married. Ruth would no longer suffer the anxiety of wondering if there was somebody else for her after being widowed. It would be well with her, and that's what Naomi hopes for her. This is the same rest that you and I get to experience when we give our hearts and our lives to Jesus. It just slipped my mind. Is it Philippians? The peace that passes understanding.
Peace that passes all understanding.
Yeah. That's what we have in Christ Jesus. It's peace that at times doesn't make sense. But he so readily offers that to us. So, all right, verse 2 says, "Now Boaz, whose young women you were with, is he not our relative? In fact, he is winnowing barley tonight at the threshing floor." And so we've already mentioned this a few times. Boaz was related to Elimelech. This isn't Naomi and Ruth looking to set a man trap and try to catch this guy off guard. Because Boaz was related to Elimelech, he was known as the Goel.
Okay.
The Goel, or can also be translated the kinsman-redeemer. It was an official title within families, and the person was a close relative. We read in the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, that the Goel had several responsibilities to his family.
And I'm glad to hear you pronounce that. I wasn't sure how it was pronounced as I was reading it. I kept hearing Goel, like in a New York accent, and I kept thinking Three Stooges. Hey, it's a Goel.
Goel. I could do it like a European sports broadcaster. Goal! Yeah. Or not. But,
or not. It's not a Goel. It's a Goel.
Goel, yes. And or kinsman-redeemer. From Guzik, he made a list which was convenient for me that I didn't have to research it, but the kinsman-redeemer was responsible to buy a fellow Israelite out of slavery. We get that from Leviticus 25:48. He was responsible to be the avenger of blood. Remember, there was no police force, to make sure that the murderer of a family member answered to the crime. We get that in Numbers 35:19. The kinsman redeemer was responsible to buy back family land that had been forfeited. Leviticus 25:25. And most important to our story here in Ruth, he was responsible to carry on the family name by marrying a childless widow, such as Ruth. We get that from Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 5 to 10, if you want to read more about that. And then Naomi says, "Oh, hey, by the way, tonight Boaz is at the threshing floor," which indicates that she was scrolling his Facebook to see what he was doing. She was digging in a little deep, asking around town to see where Boaz was going to be. And they actually, from what I understand, they would schedule their nights at the threshing floor because it was a community place, not not each person owned their own threshing floor, so you would essentially sign up for the night that you wanted it. And so she finds out the night that Boaz is using the threshing floor. So she was industrious in this plot to kind of help Ruth at least be presented with the possibility of getting married. And so she plans for her to be there at the right time. She's got it all plotted out. Matchmaker, as I said. So verse 3. Therefore wash yourself and anoint yourself, put on your best garment, and go down to the threshing floor. But do not make yourself known to the man until he has finished eating and drinking. Then it shall be when he lies down that you shall notice the place where he lies, and you shall go in, uncover his feet, and lie down, and he will tell you what you should do. And she said to her, Ruth said to Naomi, all that you say to me, I will do. So I like this. Naomi's like, all right, here's the plan.
Yeah.
Now follow these instructions exactly. And she offers some good advice to anybody that might want to make an impression with the hope to marry somebody. So from the list, number one, take a bath, right? Go get a shower, put on your best outfit. I'll tell you a story about mine. Nice.
Tell you, the man has wisdom.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And so put on your best outfit. I'll tell you about that. Mine and Michelle's first date here in a second. Dab on some perfume. That's what anoint yourself means. Make sure you smell good. And then my favorite, wait until he's eaten, because you don't get between a man and his food.
Right.
Make sure he's got a full belly. So Michelle and I, when we were dating, prior to us getting married, she and if you ask her, our first date was not a date. I had after found out that she was definitely single and past a relationship that she was in, invited her back out to coffee. We went out to coffee a couple times, but then asked her to go to a concert with me.
Okay.
And that's the date that wasn't a date. But she will tell you that she bought a whole new outfit for the date that was not a date. And so
not so much a friend zone situation.
Right. And I still remember khaki skirt, white shirt, button down shirt. I still remember that outfit and remember picking her up and we went and saw Five Iron Frenzy, and that was our first date. We went and saw them several times as we were dating. So, but yeah, so put on your best outfit, dab on some perfume, wait until he's eaten. It's all good advice. But then it seems to get a little weird. At least in my reading, it was. She says, take note where he lays down, or bunks up for the night, and then uncover his feet. And I guess if you read that, it's just like, what exactly is happening? And you might think it was a suggestive expression.
Yeah.
Move forward in a sexual manner, and that's not the case at all. So.
Oh, okay. Totally makes sense now. Last night after studying this, I went in and I uncovered my wife Tiffany's feet, and she just put on another pair of socks and rolled over, and that's as far as anything went.
I think if I were to uncover Michelle's feet, it would be fighting words. So that's a fight.
So now I understand.
Yeah. So I still don't, because I don't know exactly what it means. But yeah, I don't think that she was.
I understand what it's not.
Yeah, there you go. Naomi was not suggesting that Ruth make advances here, but in essence, this is going to be a proposal of sorts by Ruth laying at his feet. This was a gesture of submission.
Okay.
A servant slept at the feet of their master. I recently saw like a show that a period piece that would have been like King Henry, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly, but I remember seeing a scene in the king's bedroom that had a bed at the foot of the bed for the servants.
Okay.
They essentially were there to wait on them hand and foot at all times. And so this was a gesture of submission, a gesture of servitude.
Okay.
And I think that most godly husbands, are familiar with the commandments through Paul. The wives, be submissive to your husbands. Husbands, love your wives. And I think that most godly men are going to hope that they will have a submissive wife, but flip the script and ask the question, if that's what you hope for in a wife, have you demonstrated the kindness and care that Boaz has toward Ruth? Think of all that he's already done for her.
Right.
And then many wives wish for a husband who loved and cared for them like Boaz does Ruth, but are they carrying a heart to serve like Ruth does?
So now I'm better understanding. So next time, rather than just uncovering her feet, wait for the next step. Now that I know what it doesn't mean, I think I'm gonna unload the dishwasher, make supper, maybe a little laundry, clean out gutters, and then give Tiffany a big bushel of grain.
Right.
And then that night I'll expect her to uncover my feet and lay down.
There you go. I think this approach is noteworthy. Let me know how that goes for you, by the way.
I will.
Okay, I appreciate that. Wait for the text.
Tiffany will probably let you know how that goes.
I probably so. Naomi and Ruth could have demanded that Boaz act as the kinsman-redeemer. It technically was their right and his responsibility. But that's not the approach they take.
Yeah.
And I love that. Naomi instructs Ruth to go with a servant's heart and submit to Boaz and see what he would do. Don't make demands, but leave the decision up to him. Leave it in the hands of Boaz. Ultimately, leave it in the hands of God.
Mm-hmm.
And Ruth is on board with the plan. Verse 5. That heart that she carried into Bethlehem, she still has. Your people will be my people. Mm-hmm. Your God will be my God. I'll follow you wherever I go. And so Naomi lays out the plan, and she's like, yep, let's do it. So let's see where the story goes. Verse 6. So she went down to the threshing floor and did according to all that her mother-in-law instructed her. And after Boaz had eaten and drunk, and his heart was cheerful, he went to lie down at the end of the heap of grain, and she came softly, uncovered his feet, and lay down.
It sounds like there's a country song in there someplace, doesn't it?
Do-si-do to the promised boogie land.
Okay, I don't know what that means.
That's a line from This Disco Used to Be a Cute Cathedral by Steve Taylor.
Got ya.
So, harvest time was a cause for celebration. And that's what's happening here. The Lord had provided through the crop yield. So as they threshed the wheat, they would throw a feast as well. They would celebrate. And Boaz enjoys himself, eats some, drinks some wine, and then settles down by the grain. And that wasn't because he was too drunk to drive home.
Right.
He hadn't overdone it, or at least it's not indicated that he did. This was actually a measure of security. Recall when this story is happening. It's in the middle of the Judges. And what we read at the end of the book of Judges, everyone did what was right in their own eyes. 1 Samuel, which happens after this, but 1 Samuel 23:1 talks about the Philistines coming and stealing grain at the threshing floor.
And the same thing happened with Gideon.
Yeah. So Boaz wisely sets up, tattletale alarm and sleeps on site to make sure that his grain is taken care of. And then Ruth does what Naomi suggested. She waits until his belly is full and he's happy. He goes to sleep. She comes in and uncovers his feet. I still am not 100% sure why or what that's about, but lays down in the position of a servant. Now, it happened at midnight, middle of the night, that the man was startled and turned himself, and there was a woman laying at his feet. And he said, "Who are you?" So she answered, I'm Ruth, your maidservant. Take your maidservant under your wing, for you are a close relative.
Mm.
I wonder if the uncovering of the feet, maybe his feet got cold, and so he's like, ah! And wakes up and like has to like, what's going on? Maybe his bare feet touched like her cloak, and he felt the the material. Maybe he sensed somebody was close. He's in protective mode, security mode. You ever had something jump scare you awake?
Yes.
Tell me the story.
Well, yeah, so I jump scare myself awake at times because I will be in a dream, and I dream very, very vividly, and I will be in a fight, and I will be yelling and screaming and throwing punches, and I will wake myself up sometimes with all of that. In fact, there was a time that Tiffany was considering moving out of the bedroom because I had whizzed her ear a couple of times during a particularly stressful time in my life. And she's like, who were you fighting last night? And I'm like, I don't remember. And she's like, you whizzed my ear. She's like, I'm afraid you're just going to knock my teeth out next time. So, yeah. Sheesh. So thankfully that's not happened.
Yeah. I couldn't think of any time that I have been like startled awake. I have one story that I feel like was a demonic thing, and I'll share that another time. But Michelle has, and it was early on in our marriage. We were still, I think, at the old house, or maybe even it was the apartment, I believe. Where we first got married, and middle of the night, dead. Everybody's out sleeping, whatever, and she wakes up and is screaming. A spider had crawled in her ear and woke her up with the in her ear, and lights went on. We were searching to make sure that spider was dead. And but yeah, it's a vivid memory because it was startling for me. I couldn't imagine for her. So I kind of get that. Maybe that's where Boaz is at. What's going on? Once he comes to his senses and figures out everything's okay, it's just, oh hey, there's a woman at my feet. So he asks, who are you? Because it's dark. It's the middle of the night. And she responds, and I love her response, I'm Ruth, your maidservant. She comes from the position of servitude. She comes humbly to Boaz. She doesn't demand. She is now in request mode. She says, take me under your wing. This is Ruth asking Boaz to marry her. This is, in essence, a proposal. The phrase, take me under your wing, can also be translated, spread your garment over me, which was a cultural way to indicate a desire for marriage. In fact, in Hebrew weddings, even still today, the man will throw the edge of his talith, which is his skirt, essentially, over his bride to demonstrate that he has taken her under his protection. It's even used in some Arab cultures. A symbol of protection to take you under your wing. So we would use that even, like a chick and their mom, take under your wing for protection. And so she's like, you're a relative, please take me under your wing, coming as in a position of servitude. So 10 says, then he said, blessed are you of the Lord, my daughter, for you have shown more kindness at the end than at the beginning, in that you did not go after young men, whether poor or rich. And now, my daughter, do not fear. I will do for you all that you request. For all the people of my town know that you are a virtuous woman. I love it. That's Boaz's heart right there.
That is. It's right there. On the threshing floor.
Oh, I'm so glad you have a little toy to play with. That's fun.
Me too.
Love it. I've lost my place.
Virtuous woman.
She was a virtuous woman, yes. So end of verse 11 there. I think Ruth makes the request, and Boaz is literally and genuinely blown away. He's just like, this is such an amazing thing, because he has an interest in her. And so finding out that she is interested in him, she desires to marry him, he lauds her for showing him kindness in that she wanted him above some of the younger guys,
Mm-hmm.
whether poor or rich, it said. My guess would be that there was a considerable age difference between the two of them. And so he's excited that that she wants to be with him. And it would, Boaz doesn't take advantage of his position. Again, he could do that as well,
Mm-hmm.
as Naomi and Ruth could demand that he act as the kinsman redeemer. He could recognize, hey, I'm the kinsman redeemer, and I could take this woman as my wife. She doesn't have any children, and so I would be doing the right thing. He doesn't do that. He doesn't force his hand here, and
that would be out of the character that we're seeing from
right,
him.
yeah, he's willing to deny himself,
Yeah.
unless Ruth wanted to be with him. And so once he finds out that she does, he moves into action. He says, I'll do it. I'll do all that you request. And then he calls her a virtuous woman. And I love that, because the language used there in verse 11 is the same that is translated in the masculine, a mighty man of valor, that we read in some of some of the judges and what have you.
Right.
And Boaz here is not just merely attracted to her physically, or her appearance, but I think he's attracted to her character.
Right.
She's demonstrated her virtue by laboring hard to provide for herself and Naomi. Her reputation has spread in the best possible way. And in many ways, Ruth is a great example of what we esteem to be a godly woman, what we read in Proverbs chapter 31. Just some verses from that chapter that Ruth did. Proverbs 31:13, she works with her hands. 31:15, she provides food for her household. 31:17, she girds herself with strength and strengthens her arms. She brought home an ephah of wheat or barley. Her verse 18, 31:18, her lamp does not go out at night. She worked late into the night. Verse 31:30, she extends her hand to the poor. She was taking care of Naomi. Verse 31:25 says, strength and honor are her clothing, and she shall rejoice in time to come. She's going to be celebrating a wedding here, but it's because she was strong and honorable, and she acted with integrity. And then 31:30 says, a woman who fears the Lord shall be praised. And she declared that, Jehovah is my God now. And so she demonstrates a fear of the Lord, and now Boaz is praising her for it. So yeah, it's just really neat to see how the Lord is taking care of Ruth through Boaz.
Yeah.
All right, verse 12 says, now it is true that I am a close relative. However, and I hear these verses in the voice of Inigo Montoya. I don't know why. Now it is true, I am close relative. However, there is a relative closer than I. Stay this night, and in the morning it shall be that if he will perform the duty of a close relative for you, good, let him do it. But if he does not want to perform the duty for you, then I will perform the duty for you. As the Lord lives, lie down until morning. I don't know how good that was, but I enjoyed it.
Sure, you had a good time with it. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Good response. Good response.
But it's so he's going through the right steps. He's going to this relative that's closer and by rights.
Yeah.
And he's living up to the old adage, bros before Mo abites. Right?
Yes. We need a coffee mug, a t-shirt, something.
Right.
Bros before Moabites.
Yep. No bros before Moabites.
There you go. I like that Boaz is not willing to compromise his character either. He wants to uphold the law of God, and
Right.
he wants to be a man with integrity. There was another man who was a closer relative that would have the right to take Ruth for a wife if he chose to. And Boaz wants to do God's will, God's way. And he's like, you know what? As excited as I am about the possibility of this coming together, he trusts that if it was meant to be that he and Ruth get together, God will work it out. And um, so to go back to my story, prior to our date, that wasn't a date.
Mm-hmm.
That was in August of 1997, and I met Michelle in April of '97,
Okay.
and we went out for coffee a couple times. She was seeing another guy and ended up, I won't give all the details, but ended up getting pretty serious. And so I think on our third or fourth time going out for coffee, I was like, so you and this other guy, how serious is it? And she, at that point, was like, yeah, I actually think we're going to end up getting married. And I was like, oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we've had these conversations. I've enjoyed our time, and I'll just back away,
Yeah.
Somebody else is, and I think that's kind of where Boaz is at in this moment. Somebody's closer, okay. And then things did not work out, and sometime perhaps I'll tell that whole story.
Mm-hmm.
But come around to late July, somewhere around there, and my roommate, well, my best friend at the time, worked with Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And he came home from work one day and said, oh, hey, this other guy and Michelle called it off, broke up. And so I called her that day with the now infamous line, hey, do you remember me? And she did, thankfully. And so we went out for some more coffee and ended up going to see Five Iron Frenzy in her new outfit, but it wasn't a date.
No.
So yeah, I think Boaz is going to trust, hey, whatever God wants to happen is going to happen. And that's, honestly, that's the best place for all of us to be, is leave it in the hands of God to work out. It doesn't mean we're lazy. Ruth wasn't lazy.
No.
And you and I kind of talked about a little bit about that this week. And,
right.
And maybe we'll hear in a little bit, but he's just trusting the Lord to work things out. So let's finish the story. Well, continue, rather. 14, the pie verse, 3:14.
Yes.
So she lay at his feet until morning, and she arose before one could recognize another, so just barely starting to be daylight. Then he said, do not let it be known that the woman came to the threshing floor. And also he said, bring the shawl that is on you and hold it. And when she held it, he measured 6 ephahs of barley and laid it on her. And she went into the city. We'll talk about that in a second. It's Boaz and Ruth were not trying to cover up something scandalous here. Nothing. They both walked in integrity.
So when we read, he laid it on her, it's not
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Boaz, I think, doesn't want the word to get to this closer relative before he can go and talk to him personally.
Right.
So,
and I think too, with the being the man that he was, the man of valor, the man of character, you know, with people being at the threshing floor party the night before and during the harvest and things like that, you know, wanting to get her home before people are up and stirring is protecting her virtue and her reputation, really, because, you know, people talk too much, and here she is. She's an out of towner. She's an immigrant.
Yeah.
As far as they're concerned, she's really not one of them.
A pagan.
Right. A Moabite from pagan gods.
Yeah.
And it would be easy for someone to make assumptions and talk too much, especially with how much kindness he has been showing her. It reminds me of a story I once heard a pastor told, that there was a guy that started coming to church. We'll call him Frank. And, you know, Frank was kind of the town drunk, and people knew it, and he had a reputation.
Yeah.
But his heart was in the right place. He was giving up his addiction. He really had a contrite heart. and just a very humble, quiet man, kind of embarrassed over things that had happened. And he was a handyman and a mechanic by trade.
Okay.
So there was a widow in the church that needed some things done, and told the pastor, I don't know what I'm going to do. And he said, well, Frank's looking for some work. I'll send him over.
Mm-hmm.
So Frank goes over. He starts the job, and he's got to go get parts. He goes out. His car won't start. His car is dead. He can't do anything about it. So he calls his friend, the pastor, and says, hey, can you give me a ride home? I'll come back in the morning. Well, the problem is that Mildred, the biggest church gossip, lived like 2 doors down.
Oh, no.
Right? So she comes in.
Not Mildred.
Yeah, not Mildred. So, this happens on a Saturday. She comes in Sunday morning, and she's like, Frank's car, it's in front of the widow's house.
Stirring up
Stuff, talking.
The gossip pot.
Right.
Yeah.
And it was totally innocent. So, she kind of reads the riot act to Frank. He doesn't say anything. She goes and tells the pastor. The pastor says, I'll take care of it. So Frank gets his car fixed. He, finishes the job, goes home. Next Saturday night, he drives over, parks it in front of Mildred's house, calls the pastor, and the pastor says, I'll be right there.
Well played.
Yeah.
Well played. Yeah, both of them, I think, want to be on the up and up and not trying to cover up a scandal here. They're just like, he wants to honor her valor and integrity. So, and then he continues to bless and provide for her. He fills her shawl with more grain to take home to Naomi. If you're reading along in the New King James, you'll note that the word ephah there in verse 15 is in brackets, and that means the text was not specific. It was just 6 measures of barley, and then the translators kind of made a guess and said, okay, well, let's put in ephahs here. But you showed us last week how big an ephah was, right?
Yep,
you had
a little over a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah, you had the 2 buckets, and so 6 ephahs would have been close to 200 pounds. And so I kind of chuckled. If it was truly ephahs, when he laid it on her, she would have laid her out, right? Ruth is strong, but not Russian steroid enhanced athlete strong.
It's not like she's one of those key night tent peg driving women,
Right. So Guzik actually says there was a Jewish tradition that says the 6 measures of barley given as a gift to Ruth here were a sign of 6 pious men who would descend from her, endowed with 6 spiritual gifts: David, Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah, and the Messiah. And so interesting tradition, probably not a lot of weight to it, but it just it's an interesting insight.
Right.
All right, then our 3:16 verse from the book of Ruth. When she came to her mother-in-law, she said, "Is that you, my daughter?" Then she told her all the man had done for her. May we'd always talk about all that Jesus has done for us.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, "These 6 ephahs of barley he gave me. And he said to me, 'Do not go empty-handed to your mother-in-law.' Then she said, 'Sit still, my daughter, until you know how the matter will turn out. For the man will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day.'" So she goes home, early in the morning. She recaps all of the events, everything that turned out just as Naomi planned that it would, other than the catch of this closer relative. And so she tells Ruth, "Hey, sit still." I wonder if she was like pacing with nervous energy, because I bet
wonder what happened.
Yeah, Ruth is excited at this point, I'm sure. And Naomi reassures her with the line, "Boaz won't rest until the matter was taken care of." Because he's a man of integrity, he doesn't ignore a problem, and so he goes and gets things taken care of. And so he's gonna, in fact, she says, will not rest until he has concluded the matter this day. And so they're like, she's confident that it's going to be taken care of right away. And so that's chapter 3. We mentioned that each chapter kind of has a theme. I would say that the theme of chapter 3 is the rest, and she has the opportunity to enter into that rest of being married to a godly man. The chapter begins with Naomi offering the bride to be a means to rest by helping to arrange this marriage. And then the chapter ends with the groom to be not resting until the marriage is settled. Right. And I just love, we often talk about God's orchestration in our lives, and how we can see the hand of God working in the very mundane things that we do at times, or just the way things unfold.
Yeah.
We read the story of Mary and Martha from Luke chapter 10 at Church 860 just this past Sunday, so 5 days ago. Martha, if you're familiar with the story, Martha was upset with Mary for leaving all the work behind and sitting at the feet of Jesus. Where did Ruth lay down? At the feet of Boaz. And like I said, I find it amazing that the Lord put these two stories in front of us in the same week for us that attend or are part of Church 860. And when he does things like that, I have to consider in my life if he's trying to emphasize something to me. Perhaps he wants to emphasize to us that we just come and sit at his feet, find our rest in him, trusting that he will not rest until the marriage is complete, until we're with him. In John chapter 14, Jesus tells us that he's going to go prepare a place for us, that where he is, we will also be. This is the language of a husband preparing a home for his bride. He says, if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, you may also be. That's John 14:3. Jesus commended Mary for finding the one thing that was needed. We read that at the end of chapter 10 in Luke. And that was sitting at his feet. And Ruth, in our chapter tonight, was blessed by submitting to the plan of God through Naomi and going and laying at her husband-to-be's feet. I think, at least for my life, may we, as the bride of Christ, truly find our rest in him and trust that he will see to it that we are taken care of and that we are provided for.
Right. I had mentioned earlier that Naomi is telling Ruth she'll find her that rest, and I likened it to a phrase that I have, that safe, soft place to land.
Yeah.
And as you know, this study has hit very close to home for me, and we talked about it in a lot in chapter 1. And so seeing what is happening here when there wasn't a whole lot of hope to be had, and we talked about that earlier on, we're going to see hope emerge in this story of Ruth.
Yeah.
Right. But, she just goes and gets to work, but there's just not a whole lot of hope for a happy life ahead, or at least it doesn't look like that. When I became a widower, I didn't have kids, still don't, but I didn't have kids. I've got, close family that loves me, but it's not the same as your spouse or your kids that you come home to, or things like that, right? And I lived out in Knox County, so I wasn't exactly, I was 20 miles away from my family, which isn't far, but it still felt a little bit remote for me. And again, I had great friends, but when I got to my house at the end of every day, I walked up to that door knowing there was nobody on the other side of it, and may never be.
Yeah.
And I talked about those times when, I kept that go bag in my car, or I decided on a Friday evening to see what the flights were to Nashville. Things like that. And that happened very often. It's not that I was running from anything. It's just that I didn't have anything to go to, so why not?
Yeah.
And so I told folks that with my spouse gone, with no children, with no heirs, that even though I had a very nice house, a very nice structure that was warm and dry to lay my head every night, I was homeless because I had no safe, soft place on this earth to land.
You had a house, not a home.
I had a house, not a home. I didn't have, think of the times when it seems mundane, but like the most blissful times in marriage aren't necessarily the big vacations. They aren't necessarily the big trips, the new cars, things like that. It is, you realize once you lose it, it's sitting at home on a Friday night together on the couch.
Playing canasta.
Yeah. watching a movie with a pizza.
Yeah.
In your jammies.
Yeah.
That's the safe, soft place to land. That's the rest.
Yeah.
That's the rest.
So well described, dude.
Sharing your day.
Yeah.
Sharing what's on your heart, what's in your mind, what's going on. And I went years homeless. And it's hard to describe to people. And yes, I know that Jesus is our all in all. But as I described to somebody, while Jesus was very much with me, he wasn't on that other side of the door with music going and supper on the stove and a big hug.
Yeah. I think it's a Charlie Brown quote that, he getting consolation from one of his friends, and the friend says, yeah, but Jesus is with you. And Charlie Brown, I'm pretty sure it's Charlie Brown, says, yeah, but sometimes I just need somebody with skin on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Very, very much so.
Yeah.
And so, I got to where I could operate in that. But seeing what is happening here, that through Naomi recognizing what's going on, with God working through all of this, and seeing that we are approaching this place where she has that safe, soft place to land. She has left what she knew as home, pledged it to be with Naomi in a place she had never been.
Yeah.
And she is going to have home.
Yeah.
And that hits home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So, it's a big deal, because I described to a friend, there's a widow that I'm very close with. We became good friends. She's remarried, as am I. She's in Boston. We text each other every morning. And because there was a long time when there was nobody to wish us good morning or good night. So we started doing that via text, or just a quick phone call, good night, right? And I told her one time, I said, it's, sometimes I won't hear, if it's on the weekend and I'm not going to work, I don't see other people. And, I'll get a phone call here or there, but there's nobody on the other side of the door that gives a care.
Yeah.
If I walk in or I don't. And to be a little crass, I said, give a crap. Every once in a while, she will still text me and say, I give a crap. And so now having that home with Tiffany, right? And, dating and marrying in your mid-40s is different.
Yeah.
And we worked through some things, but we kept Christ at the center. And I can say that I have a home.
Yeah. For sure.
I don't care much about the house.
Yeah.
But with her, I have home. And I know that she feels that way too.
There's a Switchfoot song. If the house burned down tonight, I still have everything as long as you're by my side.
Right, and that's not some romantic platitude.
No.
And to take it even further, where Christ says that I go and prepare a place for you, that we have that safety and that peace that passes understanding. But as long as we're wrapped up in this flesh and on this earth, there are going to be those times of doubt. There's going to be those times of anxiety. There's going to be those times when we cannot get over ourselves and past what's right in front of our face to experience that peace and rest.
Yeah, the Martha syndrome.
The Martha syndrome, but we know that we are going to have it in eternity, right? Yeah. And it's important as we look into the scripture and really study it that we take nothing for granted and we truly seek out meaning, right? So often we hear John 19:30 quoted, and Jesus says, "It is finished."
Yeah.
Tetelestai, it is finished. And we hear that as the end. But it's not.
Right.
He said it, meaning the payment for sin, the sacrifice required by the Father, that blood ransom required to cover sin. He did not say, I am finished.
Right.
Big difference.
Big difference.
He was just getting started. Now he sits at the right hand of the Father every day, every moment, making intercession for each of us that calls on him in repentance. Every time. As hard as a physical human death was, do you want to be the guy taking responsibility for billions of people messing up and saying to the Father, yeah, but I covered him in the blood and they repented.
Yeah.
Right? And he's preparing a place that we can be with him for an eternity in that communion and that worship.
Yeah.
Eternity. Yeah. Do you know how long eternity is?
Nope.
Exactly. So while he said it is finished, Jesus Christ will never say, I am finished.
Right.
That's not in the vocabulary.
Yeah.
Right? But for tonight, I'm going to say it's finished and I'm finished, right? Because
Amen.
I've got supper and a warm bed and maybe a woman laying at the foot of it waiting on me. So.
Yeah, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably not for me.
Maybe not?
No.
So I'm going to say thank you for joining us today on Live 860, a podcast from Church 860 in Westerville, Ohio. If you'd like to learn more about the church, service times, and our location, you can visit us on your desktop, your laptop, your tablet, or your pocket Googling machine of choice at church860.com. There you can find a library of past sermons and teachings, and you can also learn more about the podcast at live860.com. And audio versions of all episodes are available through most of your regular podcast platforms, usually on the Monday following our Thursday night live stream.
Right on.
You can go and subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment, and sure, you'll never miss an episode unless you really want to.
We'd love for you to share it too. If you're enjoying this, share it with your friends.
Please do.
Yeah.
You can also send us an email. Let us know that if there's any specific prayer needs that you have, questions, we'd love to hear from you. Live 860 is produced by the incomparable Lisa Davis here at Never Ending Studios in Columbus, Ohio.
Thank you, lady.
And until next time, I'm Rob Chandler.
And I'm Khris Rogers. I can't even think of anything funny to say. Thanks for watching. We love you guys. God bless.
Have a great weekend. I guessed and got lucky the timing of that lady. Perfect.
You played that well.
Yeah, I was guessing on the timing.
Good preach at the end too, man.
Well, I
really
saw
good.
We had time, and
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and expound.
Yeah.
Yeah. I told Tiffany, I said, there's got to be Kenny Rogers in all of it now. And I think I can make it happen.
I remember listening to that album at my parents' house.
So I'm like, okay, let me think about this. And I'm like, okay, yep, I can remember that. You painted up your lips. Really? Okay. Yeah. Throughout. Was it looking jerky? Yeah. Right. If it was jerky there, then it was jerky on that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hit stop stream, stop recording?
Hmm. It might just be that delay.
Yeah. Stream is going to stop.
That's the way one.
Exit screen.
I turned the cameras off too, so.
Mm-hmm.